much. And thank you, everybody, for making the time. I know it's a busy time of year and it's sort of that weird in between where we're starting to transition again to school, getting out of summertime. So thank you for taking the time to show up and be here. Okay, so ADHD back to school, strategies for parents. Oh, let me just click through here. So, of course, I'm Caitlin. I'm a therapist and I'm also a parent of neurodivergent kids. So, I've sort of built my niche based on my professional and my personal experience, navigating the school system in my own experience and professionally supporting parents in doing that. So, I really like to build in practical tools that you can use, strategies that really fit in your home and work with your family. So, in tonight's workshop, we're going to talk about some common challenges, how to spot them early, and then what to do about them when we've identified them. We're going to cover some tips for supporting routine, focus, and the emotional ups and downs that going back to school and the change in routine can bring, both from our child's perspective and from our own perspective. Because as parents, we often have our own experiences with the school system as well from when we were younger and then navigating it, trying to support our kids. So it can also bring up a lot of emotions for ourselves. So, we're going to talk about some really simple tools, like I said, that you can begin implementing right away to support yourself and your kids for starting from now before school starts, and then as we move through the school year. There. Trying to brush up on my tech skills here. So, what is one thing, if you want to add to the chat, one thing that you've already been able to cross off your list for back to school? And not to make anybody feel behind, we can even say, you know what, we've registered our kids for the year. Hopefully, that's something that we've already done. And if not, there is still time. Teacher's name. So I guess some people already know teacher's name going in, which is super helpful and helpful for our kids too, to be able to get them used to what we can call, what we can refer to people. Water bottles, that's another good one. It's hard to find. I find water bottles that don't leak, that hold enough water throughout the day, are easy for our kids to open. I find Costco can be good ones. I don't know if anybody else is finding them in other places, but my go-to tends to be Costco.
I have a list, but the only thing I bought on my list so far is a backpack and a lunch bag. Nothing else yet.
You've got the main stuff covered. So
The main stuff.
and shoes. I mean, sometimes finding shoes and we need two pairs. And shopping with kids can be a whole challenge in and of itself, especially when we add in kids who have ADHD and potentially other maybe sensory issues, who probably don't love going to the store and having to pick out and try stuff on. So if we can cross that type of stuff off our list, yeah, school clothes and shoes, amazing. Oh, calculators. Found their lost calculators. That's amazing. So, preparing for back to school, of course, this is even before we go into school. Can we become familiar with the physical space? So, if our kids are going to a new school, can we go visit the school? Can we show up, visit the park, play at the park, become familiar with the schoolyard? If there's a way of visiting the school in advance, sometimes schools are a little bit hesitant to let you in a course, but if there is a way, this is something that's really important to do. Sometimes even YouTube is good just for Googling the school name. Maybe there's some videos that come up that can show us and familiarize your kid and yourself with the school environment. It's also helpful because sometimes our kids at recess can become really overwhelmed with the sensory and they don't necessarily know what to do or where to go. So, going and playing in the schoolyard actually gives them more familiarity and comfort so that when they're there with a ton more kids, they know sort of what to do. They know what they like, they know where to go. We can practice scenarios with them too. You know, if you're here and something happens, where can you go? If you're thirsty, where would you go? We can sort of talk through these scenarios with them as well to try to get them as familiar as possible. Practicing the route to school as well. So, again, if we're going to be driving it with them, if there's a school bus, is it possible to find out what the route is maybe and take the route with the car that they're going to be following, or just talk about that with your child? So, you know, usually it takes us 2 minutes to go to school. On the school bus, it might be more 10 minutes. Just preparing them in advance so that they know what to expect for that. We can practice if you already have the water bottles, the school bags, the lunch boxes, lunch containers. We can practice opening these up throughout the summertime. So sometimes serving snack in those. It's fun for the kids. Sometimes they like to practice that, especially the little ones, but it also builds in a sense of familiarity so that when they're there at school, even older kids who have been there before, if it's a new lunch container, this can throw them off because they're not familiar with it. They don't know what to expect. And school is not the time that we want to start introducing new routines if we don't have to. We want to be as familiar as possible. If we can involve kids in packing and preparing stuff for school, this is also really great because they can know where their stuff is in their bags. They know where to look for it in the morning. They know what's there. So instead of, I'm at school, I need my calculator, I have no idea where this is. Okay, I think I remember that I put it in my front pocket when I was with mom. This is where we put it together. There's the muscle memory that can come in too, even if their executive functioning and short-term memory isn't recalling. Sometimes the muscle memory. So again, the more we can involve kids in this stuff, the more successful we're allowing them to be. Starting morning and bedtime routines in advance can also be helpful so that, we're not kind of the weekend before school and we're like, oh my gosh, we've been going to bed at 10 o'clock every night, sleeping in, waking up, taking our time. And now we really have to get on the ball in the morning, getting them ready in advance. It helps adjust their body. It helps get them used to going to bed earlier. The night before school, they're already full of nerves, full of excitement, full of beans. They're going to be up late. So the more we can in advance prepare them, the better we're setting them up for success as well. Setting the routines in advance as well can look like what is the routine that we're going to be following before we go to school. So again, packing, are we going to be doing that at night? Are we going to be laying out clothes? Start doing that prior to school starting so that again, it's familiar. It's not another new layer with a new environment or a new school or new class as well. Yeah. This is an example of a bedtime routine and having sometimes these visual reminders. You might look at this and think, okay, this is preschool, kindergarten, but this can actually be good for older kids as well because we don't want to make it complicated. We want it to be simple. There's not many words. Visually, it's not very cluttered. We can structure it differently so that it's easier to follow and go through, but we want to have something that works for our kids and makes sense for them. So, I mean, again, we can add things to this. I actually made this in ChatGPT. I said, can you create me a bedtime routine visual for a child with ADHD and add these elements to it? And this is what it did. So, we don't have to use a lot of our time. I love using, I know some people have mixed feelings on AI, but I like to use it where it makes sense and where I can offload some of that mental task, some of that energy. I'm going to use it for stuff like this. So this is an example. Feel free to use it or to create something similar. When the first day of school arrives, what do we do? So we give ourselves more time than we think we need. If we think we need 10 minutes, give yourself half an hour. If we think we need half an hour, give yourself an hour. We don't want to be rushing in the morning. We don't want to be looking for things last minute. Our kids are going to be having big emotions. They're going to be deciding that they need to go pee. They don't want to wear those shoes. They want to wear a different shoe. They want to change their shirt. Maybe they want to say goodbye to the dog 5 more times before they leave the house. And we don't want to feel pressured that they don't have time for these things. So give yourself more time. If school is a 5-minute drive, plan for 15 minutes to get there. Especially first day of school, it's going to be a lot busier. When I'm talking about giving yourself more time too, I also mean for your work day, especially the first day of school. So if I mentioned scheduling your own day a little bit down, but if your school starts at 8, you're going to be there with your kids for 8. We don't want to schedule a meeting for ourselves at 8:30. We're going to be feeling rushed. We're going to be feeling too, our kids are going to be feeling that pressure. We want to set ourselves up for success too. And part of us being able to support them is supporting ourselves. So, if possible, when you're also planning your own day, try to structure it around having a busy, emotionally intense morning. So, can we plan meetings for after 10, sort of minimum? Can we keep the meetings, maybe ones that are not super intensive where we need to show up and be our best selves? Can we plan things that are more maybe checking in with a coworker, catching up on stuff? Again, not always possible, but where possible, we want to set ourselves up for success. We want to give our kids familiar foods too for school. And I know sometimes this is hard with restrictions. If your school is a peanut-free school and your kid loves peanut butter, it can be very challenging. But this isn't the day or the time to say, you know what, I'm going to introduce tomatoes to my child who I know hates tomatoes. We want to send them with foods that are familiar to them, that they like, and that, again, when they open up at lunchtime, there's a comfort there. So sometimes that is more prepackaged foods, but again, especially first day of school, first few weeks, this is okay, right? We can make up for it later at home. We want to be prepared for big emotions. So, again, both our own big emotions and our kids' big emotions. So, if we go into the day expecting, you know what, they're so excited to go back to school, they were so excited to buy their new shoes, the day is just going to be super smooth, we're probably going to be disappointed. We're probably going to be setting ourselves up to be let down. So, we want to be prepared for it. We want to say, you know what, even if they're excited, they might be acting out a little bit more, they might be pushing back, they might be crying as they go in, saying they don't want to go. And this is all, again, maybe it's not going to show in the morning, maybe it'll be more after school. We'll talk about that after too, but we just want to be prepared for it. We want to prepare their tools as well and make sure they know where their tools are. And what I mean by their tools, if they need fidget spinners at school, if they need noise canceling headphones, I really like, I have these stickers that I use with my kids that are great to stick on a binder, on a pencil case. They're textured and they actually, I don't know if you can see, I'm going to try to hold it up to the camera there, but they have arrows you can follow for breathing. So they can use these to help regulate themselves at school when they're feeling anxious. There's lots of different, you can get a big pack on Amazon, not expensive, but you want to give them those types of tools right from the beginning so they can start off with success again and feeling ready. Preparing tools as well. Does the school know what tools they need and do they have them available? If your child really likes a lot of movement, fidgets a lot, do they need to be sitting on a chair that, they have these chairs that sort of wobble with the kids so they can move around and they can fidget and it can be channeled there so that they can focus in class still. Does the school have these available? Do they know that your child is going to be requiring this? There's a lot of different inexpensive options too. We can also use at home. Sometimes you can buy these big rubber bands to put under the chair legs at the table, and your kids can kind of fidget with their feet. What I want to mention with all of these tools, though, is that sometimes with our kids, they might work for a period because of the sense of novelty, and then they may stop working. So it's always worth trying something out, but then pivoting if we see that it isn't working for our kids, or that, again, we take it out for a month, stops being as effective, maybe we pull it out a few months later. After school, the fun time when we think kids are going to come home, want to tell us about their day, it's going to be lovely, and it isn't. So expect big feelings again, including your own. So, what are some of your go-to strategies? And maybe we can share those in the chat. I'm going to see my chat disappeared, so I don't know if I can find it again. Um, Let me see here. I can't find my chat. I don't know, Luigi, maybe you can sort
I,
of
I
yell it
yeah, yeah, no
there.
worries. I can read it out for you.
But what are some go-to strategies if anybody is willing to share when your child's having big emotions? What's something that you go to, especially when those emotions are building? And again, it's fast. We're not prepared for it always.
Um, I think people are still typing.
Yeah.
Okay, take your time, of course. And we're going to be talking about strategies too, but I thought I'd put it out because I love when we can share what works with each other. I think it's so valuable to learn from one another.
Someone had mentioned try to listen without judgment.
Mm, yes. And for ourselves too.
Mhm. Magnesium gummies.
Yes, magnesium can help a lot for some kids with ADHD as well.
Erica had said, we don't get the big emotions, we get the headaches and tummy aches. Try to tease out if we is sick or sick or sick. Sorry, Debbie, I think you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to mention sometimes I'll just get my child to breathe with me. Like I'll do let's do it together, just so that they can calm down and maybe tell me about it.
I love those
Uh-huh.
and using that co-regulation, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes for us in those moments when we really don't know what to do, going to that, right? If we can slow ourselves down, we're going to help them slow themselves down too. Because of course, when they're escalated out here, sometimes the talking, they're not listening. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later too. But when the emotions are big, those are not the teaching moments. Teaching in the sense of using verbal trying to verbally guide them or to set boundaries in that way. We can use our bodies, we can use our breathing. Those are going to be a lot more effective. Sometimes, even just, in our head when we're like, I don't know how to manage this, just saying, okay, I'm going to take a loud inhale and exhale, and our kids will often start to copy us. And it's really neat
Right.
to watch that happening because, again, we don't necessarily even have to do such fancy or complicated things. Just using our body with them can really make a difference.
Someone had mentioned focus on your own self-regulation, listen to them, co-regulate. Someone mentioned have some quiet space and kinetic touch, give them your undivided attention to let them express themselves.
Oh, I love all these strategies. Thanks everybody for sharing. And absolutely, we're going to talk a little bit later, but focusing on their sensory needs too. If we have kids who are sensory seeking, who like pressure, again, does our kid want a hug? Do they want to feel our bodies pressed on them? Or do they not want that? Do they want a little bit of distance, but maybe we're staying close to them so that we're available to them, but not necessarily in their space, in their bubble? This is one that I love to do, especially with the younger kids. And I mean, when I say younger, I do mean kind of 12 and under, because even some of the, what we might consider preteens, like this one as well, most kids like hot chocolate. It's often something we associate with comfort and warmth. So there's something about it that's sort of cozy and just calming. And it's a really easy one. So we just imagine that we're holding a hot chocolate in our hands and it's really, it's yummy. We can smell it. So we take a big breath in and we smell it, and oh my gosh, it's so chocolatey. It smells delicious, but it's so hot. So we're going to breathe on it to try to cool it down. And now we're going to try taking a sip of it. And then we're going to go, because it's so delicious. And again, this is one that we can use with our kids. It's a great one. They often really like it. It's engaging. Another one that's especially good with older kids and for ourselves. I use this myself and with my adult clients, but also with my own kids is hand breathing. And we take our finger like this. And when we inhale, we trace up. And then as we exhale, we trace down. And again, we just do the whole hand like that. And it's not necessarily going to make the stress go away, but what it does is maybe we were at an 8 of anxiety and now we're at a 6. So now we have more space to manage the things that are coming at us, including our child and their emotions. So again, this is a great one to teach our kids. And I mean, if we don't know what to do, if we're feeling overwhelmed, just doing this. And our kids might be like, what are you doing? And you can be like, I'm trying to manage my own emotions right now. And this is, again, a great way of showing the child we're not saying that this is their fault. We're taking responsibility for ourselves and we're using a strategy, we're role modeling it. Restraint collapse. So I don't know if this is a term people are familiar with or not, but this is essentially what is happening when kids are coming home at the end of a school day. So what it is, kids have been holding it together all day at school. There's a lot of rules to follow. There's a lot of noise. They have to do work. They have to do it at a specific time in a specific place. They have to go outside, sometimes even bathroom, even though they should be able to go at any moment they need to. They might feel pressure to go at a certain time of the day. They have to eat at a specific moment instead of listening to their hunger cues. So it's a lot on them. It's a huge demand on their energy, on their executive functioning, which of course our ADHD kids really struggle with. When they come home, they're not in that space anymore. They're in their safe space, and all of that tension, all of the emotion, all of that just sort of comes out in a big blah. And for us as parents, this can be incredibly difficult because, we're like, you were fine when I met you after school. And then the minute I closed the door or you walked in the front door, you just collapsed. But this is a sign actually of secure attachment and that their home is their safe environment and that you are their safe person. So if we can view it that way, sometimes it takes a little bit of the intensity and the, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? Why is my child only like this at home? What's happening? Are they happy to see me? Can take a little bit of that and change it into, okay, no, now they're in their safe place. Now they can finally let go of what they've been holding all day and just be themselves. So we sort of just see this collapse, right? And the collapse can come out even physically. I mean, they might walk through the door and just throw all their stuff, throw the school bag, throw the shoes, kick them off. Again, this isn't the moment to focus on your shoes need to go here. You need to carry your backpack. You need to hang it up. Yes, we want to build that in, but this isn't the time or the way to do it. We can role model it if we want, just by picking up their backpack, putting it where it should go. But again, we don't want to use this as the verbally teaching moment. What we can do, we can meet them with calm. And when I use the word calm, I use it as an acronym. So it stands and then meet with love. And you don't need to write that down. We have a handout that will have it on it. So don't feel like you need to remember that and quickly jot it down. You can if you want to, but if it helps you stay focused in the presentation, feel free. But when we say center, we're talking about ourselves too and our kids. So center, we want to ground ourselves. We want to assess needs. Is our child hungry? Are they thirsty? Because again, especially if they're on medication for ADHD, they probably haven't had a big appetite throughout the day. And now that they're coming home, medication's starting to wear off, they may be starving. Even if they've eaten their lunch, not medicated, they're probably coming home and starving, right? Eating in a noisy, loud, stimulating environment is not the best place for our body to digest food. So when we come home to our safe space, we're gonna be hungry. So if we can focus on giving a snack, giving something to drink, letting go of expectations. So again, expectations around we're going to get into homework right away. We're going to talk about the day. I'm going to have them help me do chores right away as soon as they walk in that need to be done. We want to meet them with love. And again, that's just showing up with ourselves, helping to co-regulate, showing them that it's okay, no judgment, we're just receiving this. Focus on the connection again. So connection in the sense of connection is more important than the teaching. Oh, I'm frozen. Can you guys still hear me? I just noticed my image is frozen.
Yeah, we can hear
Yes,
you.
we can still hear you.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you can't see me, slide is the important piece. So the co-regulation as well. When we hear co-regulation, we often hear it in a way of helping kids to manage their emotions, but it's actually a little bit more than that. It's actually building up communication skills. It's building up that sense of who takes the turn, social skills. So when we co-regulate, we're not just using our bodies to help calm them. We can actually co-regulate in moments where we're doing maybe laundry together, we're doing a task together, we're using our body to help them learn and to manage. If we think of folding sheets together, we're learning about taking turns. This is setting the foundation for other forms of communication, for other ways of co-regulating and managing yourself in social situations. So when we say co-regulate, yes, with their big emotions, also just in general, right? In other moments. What we can do for ourselves as well, give yourself time to transition and prepare. So when I talk about the calm as an approach to use towards your child, also to use towards yourself. So do that self check-in. If you finish work at 4:30 and you go to pick the kids up, you leave the house at 4:31, we're not giving ourselves that time. Can we maybe, and I know there's a rush, we want to get them home, we want to get supper started, we want to also end the day. Can we take 5 minutes and just do a little check-in with ourselves? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I need to go to the bathroom? Am I hot? Should I maybe change the clothes I'm wearing before I go? What do I need to get myself in a good state before I go to get them? And we're not talking, I mean, yes, we could probably all use a couple hours to transition, but we can make it a 5 minute, right? Just getting used to doing that check-in with ourselves. Do we need to do a breathing exercise? You can't see probably, but I'm doing the hand breathing. Do we need to do that prior to going to get them? Can we use, if we're picking them up in the car, can we use the time to listen to a podcast that we're interested in, an audiobook, just the radio, a song that feels good to help us with that transition and get us into a good state? If they're coming home on the bus, we know they come home at 4 o'clock. Stop your work at about 3:50, even if we're just pausing, having to resume later, but give yourself that time to transition before they walk in the door. We're going to be in a much better space to meet them and to be able to support them. Silence. So as much as we want to ask them about their day and find out, which friends are in their class, what's their teacher like, how did they like it, what's their favorite subject, did they do any activities? Again, they've had demands on them, on their ability to focus and manage all day long. They don't need more of that the minute they walk in the door. So sometimes just a big hug, hi, we can leave it at that. And we can sort of go by based on their cues. We can hand them a snack. We don't even need to ask if they're hungry. We just know they're going to be. We can hand them a snack, hand them something to drink. Again, basic needs. So we want to feed, we want to hydrate, and then regulating activities. So as somebody mentioned before, focusing on the sensory needs is maybe using a screen at this point, something that's going to help them to regulate and calm down. Maybe this is the time to use it. Is it sitting in a room with them, doing a quiet activity? Are they a child that likes crafts, that would move into that easily, that likes to play with toys, with games? Do they need movement in this moment? Do we have a trampoline they can jump on? And I mean, you can get those little ones. We don't need the big backyard ones, which are great, but there are small ones we can use in the house as well. Do we need some type of movement for them to help them regulate themselves? One thing that I did that my kids really loved for a while, I filled up the bathtub with pillows and blankets, and my kids would just go in and bury themselves in it. And again, the pressure on them feeling kind of contained and in that space. And I mean, I just used things that we had. If you have a yoga mat, rolling them up like a burrito, some kids really like pressure on them. And again, that feeling of tightness, of pressure on their body, couch cushions. We can put couch cushions on them and make them into a little sandwich and squish them. Some kids really like that. And again, it really helps to reset their systems. So when we know what our kids need and we're able to work in an activity to meet those needs, we're going to help get them back on track and into a better state faster than if we weren't taking all of this into consideration. You have this on the handout as well, so don't feel that you need to write this down, but this is just sort of a quick summary of that again. So we want to pause, we want to take the time to transition, do the calm self check-in. We want to connect and focus on our calm presence, our empathy, showing up without judgment, co-regulating with them. Have that moment to reset. And again, focus on what are some sensory needs, what's some movement or play. If we have more than one kid too, something to keep in mind is that one of our kids may need a lot of movement and a little bit more noise, and the other may just need silence. So how do we use our space in our house to accommodate both of those? Do we have a space that can be quieter and a space where we can allow for more movement? Do we need to sort of separate and set two different areas so that we can accommodate these two different spaces? Do we have noise canceling headphones at home to let a child who needs more silence use? If the house is noisy or if other kids in the home are making noise as well. And then we want to ease in. So ease into the other mealtime, schoolwork, other things that need to be done in the evening. And what that is going to look like is, they're not coming in the door. Okay, now they're doing a game and now we're rushing to supper. What it might look like is, okay, we're playing a game together. Maybe you're using a screen. Now we're turning the screen off. I'm going to start setting the table. Maybe they're going to follow you into the kitchen. Maybe we're providing, again, little bits of what we're cooking to them to kind of entice them to come into that space. We're transitioning them. Homework, we're going to talk a little bit about some strategies for homework too. But we want to make sure we want to set them up for success. We want to set you up for success. We don't want homework to be a battle. So we want to use a time where they're in the best state possible to try to get into this, right? So other strategies to support your child at home: body doubling, low demand parenting, and flexible thinking. And we're going to talk more about these in the following slides, but I'm just listing here, of course, some of the different strategies. So body doubling is working alongside or beside somebody. So again, sort of mirroring, our bodies are designed, our brains have mirror neurons in them. We tend to copy the same way with breath when we're co-regulating. So working beside somebody doing a similar task actually helps the brain to stay more focused and on task than it would if we were doing this independently. And we can use this with our kids as well. It works also with adults. If we have friends, coworkers that we can accomplish tasks with at the same time, even if we're just on the phone doing things, FaceTiming, it's going to help us as well. Homework, packing lunch, and bedtime routine are great places to use body doubling with our kids. So using this in homework might look like something, they're sitting at the table doing their homework. We're sitting beside them making a grocery list. So we're also focused on a task while they're focused on their task. And it's a similar type of task. Packing lunch. While they're packing lunch, maybe we can be preparing food for the next day too, getting some supper ready, getting a snack ready for later, but doing a similar type of task. Bedtime routine. Can we do part of our bedtime routine with them? Again, if we're brushing our teeth with them, it's going to go a lot better typically than if they're just brushing their teeth and we're standing there saying, come on, please brush your teeth for the 50th time. If we're doing it, there's more of a chance of them just naturally copying us and doing it too. Low demand parenting. So, of course, we love to schedule after school activities, play dates on the weekend, seeing family, seeing friends, but especially the first few weeks of school, if we can accommodate a calmer schedule, it's going to set our kids up to have that time to unwind and relax. So, chores, things like that, can we try to reduce demands those first few weeks, especially? Again, not the time to get into, I know we love school starting, let's reset everything, let's implement, new routines, get chores started, all of this. Great ideas. In reality, better to start a few weeks prior to school starting, or again, a few weeks after, so that our kids who are already overwhelmed are not even more overwhelmed by us demanding more things of them. And of course, all of those types of things require executive functioning, which our kids are burnt out from using at school, right? So this lowers feelings of overwhelm. It lowers the chance of meltdowns and power struggles. Please just do your chore. I don't want to do my chore. I'm not doing it. Please, it avoids all of this. Homework can be an example of this. So with my son, when he was in, I forget what grade they started doing the dictates in, but like the spelling lists, what I did to try to meet him halfway and again lower the demand on him, he would read me the words and I would write them and then he would correct them. So I'm doing it with him. He's still learning the same way because he's reading the words, so he's visually seeing them. He's having to correct my mistakes. So again, he's learning, he's having to spot out where I've made the mistakes, but he's not actually having to write the words. And then he loved switching up roles and being the parent, sort of being the teacher in that example. So he was a lot more likely to get on board and do that than if I had just asked him to do them or I read the words out to him. So this is one strategy. Again, with homework, do we need to do the homework? Do we need to do all of the homework? Some homework is better than no homework being done. So when we're talking about low demands, Sometimes we need to take what we can get with kids. If they're willing to do math but not spelling, let's take math. Do we need to do some on weekends when maybe it's a calmer time and they've had time to rest, time to catch up, as opposed to weeknight? Can we structure the week so that we're doing the homework in a time where it fits best for them, when they're most able? Flexible thinking. So, of course, sometimes we're not very good at this either as parents, especially when we are stressed. Our capacity to be flexible and adapt decreases, the same as it does for our kids. So, part of this is recognizing when something really isn't working for our kids and then being able to adapt. So, if our routine is not working, what isn't working about it? And even though maybe this is the routine we'd like to see, if our kid isn't able to follow it, we need to adapt and work it in a way that they are a little bit more able to be successful. We can shift from an all or nothing thinking perspective. So, again, if we go back to the example of homework, some homework is better than no homework, right? So having done something is better than nothing. It's not a zero homework or everything being done. With things like teeth brushing too, if they're willing to put a toothbrush in their mouth, move it around a bit, this is better than zero teeth brushing. So if you're struggling with certain aspects, can we be a little bit more flexible and say, you know what, we're going to get there eventually. We can build on the skill. But for right now, maybe this is an okay level to be expecting and accepting from them. When we lower demands, sometimes we think, but we're not going to be teaching our kids the skills. How are they going to ever learn how they can, they need to do their homework. They need to learn this. Probably. But if we're overwhelming a child who's already overwhelmed, they're not going to learn those skills because they're not going to have the capacity. They're going to become more burnt out. If we're meeting them where they're at, we're lowering the demands, adapting things to what work for them. They are going to gain back some of that energy, be able to use it, and eventually be able to gain those skills. So it's setting them up in the long run for a lot more success, even though in the short run, it may not look like that, if that makes sense. And that's the flexible thinking again. Here is the worksheet I've been talking about. So I don't know if you can, Luigi, can they just click this or is it in the chat now?
So I just sent a link in the chat right now.
Perfect. So this has a lot of the key points that I've been talking about, the calm strategy, how to meet them when they come home, the body doubling, low demand parenting, and the flexible thinking. And I'm still frozen, but at least you can hear me.
You want to
Connect.
maybe try on turning your camera off and putting it
Yeah.
back on?
Good idea. Okay, let me see if I can do that without. Um, oh, sorry, oh, I can't go back now. My little menu of things has disappeared. Like
At the bottom,
Oh,
like
uh,
scroll the cursor down. Maybe it'll come back.
maybe exit full screen.
Okay. Yeah, I think let me see if I can move. Sorry, everybody. Let me see if I can move this out of the way. Okay, I'll exit full screen. And no, I still don't see it.
Do you know where your Zoom?
Hmm. Do you know what? if everybody's okay with me being frozen. Oh, you turned my
Yeah,
thing off.
I'm gonna ask to start your video again.
Okay.
Perfect. Awesome. We're all good.
I was going to say, if everybody's just okay with me being frozen, then maybe it's just easier than me trying to figure it out. And
Well, you're back now. We see you moving.
awesome. This is nicer than me in that awkward position that I was in before. Yeah. All right, so connecting with the teacher. So this is something that is so important. Our teachers, our school environment is our community and they support our kids. The more our kids can feel the sense of community around them and we can feel it too, the better we're setting them up again because there's more people they can turn to for support and for help. So reaching out to the teacher in the first week and just introducing ourselves, explaining, hey, I'm so and so's mom. So nice to meet you. Welcome to the school. Or, we're so happy to have you this year. Introducing a little bit about your child. Something I didn't realize before my kids started school is that the teachers don't necessarily have access to our kids' files. We sort of expect that when we send in this information, when we send in these evaluations, these IEPs, that the teachers have these, are very familiar with them, know what's on them, and they don't necessarily. So connecting with the teacher and just giving them a little blurb, hey, just wanted to reach out. I'm so and so's mom. Just wanted to touch base and make sure, you're familiar with their needs. We want to attend parent-teacher nights. We want, again, as much contact as possible. So opportunities to meet them in person, go over this again. We can bring documents, we can bring tools, we can really talk about how it's going. We want to maintain regular contact with the teacher and any other specialists that are involved. So if there's a speech pathologist involved at the school, if there's a psychoeducator, if there's an OT, anybody who's involved with your child at the school, we want to maintain regular contact with. It's a good way too of not being surprised that we thought everything was going well because we didn't hear anything, and then we find out that in fact it wasn't. And it's a good way too of giving the teacher some tools and some strategies to help set them up for success with your child, as well as setting your child up for success in the class. So when I list there, provide examples of expected behaviors, I'm going to give an example of that on the next slide, but we can include an example like that in the email that we send out the first week to them. And remember that even though they're the experts on education and they have seen lots of children, they've probably educated children with ADHD before, you are the expert on your child. So you know what works for your child and you know what doesn't. And you know the specific challenges better than anybody else does. Yes, the teacher is part of the team. Yes, the specialists are part of the team, but we are really the ones that know them the best. This is an example of an expected behavior and how we can write this in an email to a teacher. So, scenario we're probably all familiar with. Your child tends to be described as being disruptive in class. They're always speaking out of turn, they're always asking questions, they're speaking over other kids. How do we write this to the teacher? Because this is something that's probably going to come up if this is a comment that we've gotten about our child at school before, or we know that our child tends to do. So we can write something similar to, use the example of Claire, not an actual person, just a name that I chose to use for this. So when Claire feels anxious, she often regulates by asking lots of questions. Well, while this can sometimes be mistaken for disruptive behavior, because of course in class this is disruptive for the teacher, it's actually her way of managing her anxiety. So we're telling the teacher where this behavior that they're identifying as disruptive is coming from. And that, again, it's not behavior based. This is actually her way of trying to manage her own anxiety. We can say previous teachers have found that supporting her through the anxious moment, rather than focusing on the number of questions, helps her calm and re-engage more effectively. So we're giving a solution to, and now when Claire in class is asking lots of questions and being disruptive and speaking out of turn, hopefully the teacher isn't just attributing that to Claire is trying to disrupt the class. Hopefully she's able to recognize that this is a sign that Claire is feeling anxious and maybe needs some support regulating herself. So the way that she's going to react to this is going to be different than if it's viewed as a behavior. This can also be helpful so that later in the year, if you are getting the comments again about your child is so disruptive, they constantly speak out of turn, you can reference this. Yes, I'm very familiar with that. This is how she reacts when she's anxious. She's trying to regulate herself. I recognize it can seem disruptive in class. If we focus on the feeling, on the fact that she's anxious and how we can support her with that, can we remind her of her tools, of her strategies? Is there an option for extra support for her in that moment, as opposed to discipline or trying to just get her to stop asking questions? We're going to have a lot more success. Claire is going to build a much better relationship with her teacher. Her teacher is going to be better equipped to manage Claire's behaviors in the class. We're setting everybody up for a lot more success. So this is one example, but of course it's going to be slightly different depending on your child and what's coming up. But the more we can give these concrete strategies to the teachers too, again, even though, we think, well, this seems obvious for the teacher, shouldn't they know this? It doesn't hurt for us to help point it out for them. Again, we're just giving everybody that little edge to help set everybody up for more success. Remember that your child's behavior is not a reflection of your parenting. Because again, I know sometimes we can feel in school systems and other parents who don't have kids with ADHD or kids who are neurodivergent can have that dialogue that, oh, if that was my kid, I would just be more strict. I would just have a better routine. I would never allow that type of behavior. And we know that this isn't the case, right? This is stemming from something different than a child who's just choosing to act out or choosing not to listen. So, as parents, we really need to remember that as well so that we don't feel the shame or the guilt and that we're comfortable to advocate for our kids.
I find you really have to speak up because the teachers, like you said earlier, they don't get the information. Sometimes they don't maybe read the IEP. I mean, I doubt they don't read it, but you just can't assume that they know. And they don't always know what your kid needs. So I always find that you need to kind of have that conversation with a teacher.
Absolutely. No, I'm so glad that you brought that up, Debbie. And I mean, this is something I find as well, having a child who's neurodivergent myself, one of the things when I go to professionals, they always suggest sticker charts, token reward systems. And this is a huge pet peeve of mine because we know that these don't work with neurodivergent kids. And yet these specialists are suggesting this as the first go-to. So again, we think that they're going to have the information. We think they're going to know how to apply it, not to fault them. I mean, they're also very busy. They have lots of kids, right? Trying to remember everybody's IEP every year, especially the first week, is difficult. So we just want to give them that advantage, a little bit the squeaky wheel, right? We want to be that squeaky wheel, and we can do it in a very respectful, very cooperative way. Yeah. These are some resources. So I put on some short reads, and I really like the first two I put, they're very, as you can see, they're very short reads. So I like that about them. You're not committing to a lot. To read the first few chapters, you can go through it quite quickly, and I find them really helpful. The other longer reads, if you want to do a more deep dive, but also super helpful books, are these, but as you can see, a little bit more meaty than the others. And we linked a website there too that is a great resource, a great community, lots of options available for different topics, different ways to support.
I've also pasted this in the chat as well, just in case someone misses the PowerPoint.
That's fantastic. Thank you again. So, questions, and thank you, everybody. I'm sorry I was frozen, slight technical difficulty, but we're back. We're here. You showed up. We showed up. So thank you everybody for attending, and I hope that you are able to take away at least one piece from tonight that is going to be helpful and help you feel a little bit more prepared